Hello everyone. Today I want to talk to you about Indonesia planning to purchase a large number of China's J-10 fighter jets. This record-breaking deal signals the rise of China's military industry. In addition, the Netherlands, together with the US, is plundering Chinese chip companies. China has cut off supplies in retaliation, and American car companies are suffering as a result. The Netherlands has gone to outrageous lengths to forcibly seize the overseas assets of Chinese companies. On October 10th, the Netherlands announced that it had already taken over the core asset of Chinese semiconductor leader J-10 technology, Nexperia, located in the Netherlands, on September 30th. This move by the Netherlands is clearly in coordination with the so-called penetrating rule issued by the US on September 29th this year. The core of this rule is, first, the 50% ownership rule. If a foreign entity is owned 50% or more by a company on the US sanctions list, that foreign entity will automatically be subject to the relevant sanctions list restrictions. Second, the red flag warning. If an exporter knows that their counterparty is controlled by an entity on the US sanctions list but cannot confirm the exact shareholding percentage, they must conduct due diligence or similar measures to investigate the counterparty's shareholding structure or apply to the US government for a license. China sees the US announcement of this rule as a penetrating rule, meaning that the previous sanctions list targeting Chinese companies now penetrates much deeper, covering a large number of subsidiaries of companies sanctioned by the US. The day after the US announced this penetrating rule, the Dutch government took over Nexperia, a subsidiary of J-10 technology in the Netherlands. China will not hesitate to retaliate against the Dutch government's forceful seizure. Just 2 days after the Dutch government announced the takeover of Nexperia, it declared a ban on exporting products from China to the now state-controlled Nexperia in the Netherlands. According to the export control measures issued by China's Ministry of Commerce, Nexperia units and its subcontractors in China are prohibited from exporting products and components made in China to Nexperia in the Netherlands. Headquartered in the Netherlands, Nexperia is one of the world's largest manufacturers of basic chips, mainly producing chips for the automotive and consumer electronics industries. Its predecessor was the Standard Products division in Nijmegen, Netherlands, which was acquired by J-10 Technology in 2019. In 2024, Nexperia's revenue was approximately 14.7 billion yuan, accounting for about 1/6 of its parent company J-10 Technology's total annual revenue. After being taken over by the Dutch government, Nexperia issued a statement saying they are actively negotiating with the Beijing authorities to seek exemption from the impact of China's countermeasures. The reality is, after China cuts off supply to Nexperia, its production will indeed be heavily affected. According to the South China Morning Post, Nexperia has a massive packaging and testing plant in Dongguan, covering about 80,000 square meters. This Dongguan plant supports a large portion of Nexperia's final product shipments, accounting for about 70% of Nexperia Netherlands' total shipments. In other words, a large number of Nexperia's finished products are actually manufactured or packaged in China. As a result, the whole situation will reach a stalemate. Netherlands, since you've seized the assets of a Chinese company, if the Dutch government doesn't back down and cancel the takeover of Nexperia, then China will continue to cut off supply to this Dongguan packaging plant. Even if Nexperia wants to restart its supply chain overseas, it's basically impossible to achieve that in less than 3 years. This kind of impact will immediately ripple out to Nexperia's customers. According to a Reuters report on October 16th, several major automotive manufacturers' organizations in Europe and the US have warned that the chip supply cut caused by the dispute between China and the Netherlands could quickly impact car production in the US and Europe. The European Automobile Manufacturers Association said that several carmakers received notices from Nexperia last week, stating that it could no longer guarantee the delivery of automotive chips. The European Automobile Manufacturers Association said that the automotive industry could face serious disruptions. The Alliance for Automotive Innovation, which represents almost all major automakers in the US, including General Motors, Toyota, Ford, and Volkswagen, has also urged for a prompt resolution to this issue. Their CEO, Botzella, said that if the shipment of automotive chips cannot be quickly restored, it will disrupt car production in the US and have spillover effects on other industries, with very serious consequences. Some automakers have said that US car factories could run out of chips as early as next month. According to the Financial Times, the Dutch government's takeover of Nexperia will intensify friction between Western countries and China in the field of advanced technology. At the regular press conference on October 16th, Chinese Ministry of Commerce spokesperson He Yongqian stated that China firmly opposes the Dutch side's broadening of the concept of national security and its direct administrative intervention in the internal affairs of enterprises. Such actions not only violate the spirit of contracts and market principles, but will also seriously damage the business environment in the Netherlands. It harms both others and themselves. He also said that the US's so-called penetrative rules are the root cause of harm to Chinese companies. It can be summed up like this. First, the Netherlands is being manipulated by the US, forcefully took over Nexperia, and seized the assets of a Chinese company, which is a complete violation of free market principles. This makes people feel that the investment environments in both the US and the Netherlands are extremely frightening. Just imagine, what if China decided that Tesla's electric cars operating in China posed a threat to China's national security? In fact, former US Secretary of Commerce Raimondo once made similar accusations against Chinese cars. Then, overnight, China nationalizes Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory. How would everyone feel about that? Second, the US thinks that by having the Netherlands take over Nexperia, they can maintain the chip supply from Nexperia. But what they don't realize is that 70% of Nexperia's manufacturing processes are done in China. Now that China is hitting back by cutting off the supply, it's basically a case of if I go down, we all go down together. American car companies will soon have no chips to use. With today's globalized production, we're all intertwined. You're in me, I'm in you. Does the US really think it can cover the sky with one hand? China's J-10 fighter jet. In the India-Pakistan air battle, it shot down a French-made Rafale, landing a big order. Indonesia's Ministry of Defense confirmed China will supply 42 J-10C fighter jets to Indonesia. This marks the first time China and Indonesia reached an aircraft procurement deal with a non-Western country. On October 15th, Indonesia's defense minister, Syarif, confirmed that the Chinese-made J-10 fighter jets will soon arrive in Jakarta.
Finance Minister Prevail approved a $9 billion budget, noting everything should be ready, but I'll verify delivery timelines from Beijing. Asterix, Beijing News Times called this significant, tracing the deal's origins.
They investigated how this major deal was finalized. According to the report, in recent years, Indonesia has begun to push forward military modernization due to the aging of its military equipment. Previously, Indonesia finalized an order for 42 French Rafale fighter jets for $8.1 billion, with the first batch expected to be delivered in 2026. By June this year, Turkish President Erdogan also announced that Turkey would export 48 Black Hawk helicopters to Indonesia, with a price tag of about $10 billion. At the same time, Chinese fighter jets also came into Indonesia's view. At last November's Zhuhai Air Show, the Chief of Staff of the Indonesian Air Force also visited several Chinese fighter jets and drones, and even got into the cockpit of the J-10C. News about Indonesia planning to purchase Chinese fighter jets started to spread widely after the India-Pakistan air battle on May 7th this year. By June, Indonesia's Deputy Minister of Defense, Tufanto, said that the Indonesian government was conducting a feasibility assessment for the procurement of J-10 fighter jets. He made it clear that the J-10's combat performance during the India-Pakistan conflict was one of the key factors for Indonesia to consider purchasing it. If it turns out that this fighter jet has excellent performance, meets our standards, and the price is reasonable, then why wouldn't we buy it? That same month, Indonesian National Armed Forces spokesperson Sianturi also said that the J-10 had demonstrated its capabilities during the India-Pakistan conflict, which proves that China now possesses cutting-edge technology. In addition, China has a good relationship with Indonesia. After being elected, Indonesian President Prabowo visited China and upgraded the existing four-wheel drive cooperation between China and Indonesia, which included political, economic, people-to-people, and maritime cooperation, into a five-pillar partnership, with the new pillar being security cooperation. Even when unrest broke out in Indonesia on the eve of China's September 3rd military parade, President Prabowo still took a late-night flight to Beijing to attend the parade ceremony. Obviously, the strong bilateral relationship between China and Indonesia, along with the real combat effectiveness demonstrated in the India-Pakistan air battle of '57, likely contributed to Indonesia's major purchase order for J-10 fighter jets. According to the Beijing News, Indonesia's large-scale purchase of J-10 fighter jets has set 3 new records. First, the Indonesian Air Force's fleet is quite diverse. Its main fighter jets currently come from the United States, Russia, France, and some are light fighters produced in South Korea. Many of the older jets have been flying for over 30 years and are in urgent need of upgrades and replacement. This large-scale purchase of J-10s marks the first time Indonesia has bought fighter jets from outside the Western and Russian systems. Second, Indonesia's purchase of 42 J-10 fighter jets for $9.1 billion has set a new record for the largest single sale of Chinese fighter jets to date. In comparison, Pakistan has purchased J-10C fighter jets in multiple batches, with the largest single purchase being 36 aircraft. In addition, Indonesia's J-10 order has also set a new record for the average unit price of Chinese fighter jets, estimated at $214 million per aircraft, which means China will provide Indonesia with a complete modern aerial combat support system. Third, and most importantly, Indonesia's purchase of China's J-10 fighter jets marks the first time Chinese fighter jets have broken the long-standing monopoly of the US, Russia, and France, entering the Southeast Asian market. Indonesia is an archipelagic country with over 17,000 islands, and its climate characteristics and defense requirements are different from those of the India, Pakistan, and South Asian regions. If the J-10 can demonstrate its superior 4.5 generation fighter jet competitiveness in Indonesia, it will have a demonstration effect for other countries. This is not only economically significant, but also has geopolitical implications. For a long time, Southeast Asian airspace has been dominated by US fighter jets, largely due to America's perceived benevolent hegemony and overwhelming military strength. As a result, there is an ingrained reliance on the US for the security of important international routes in the region. Indonesia's purchase of Chinese fighter jets clearly helps to balance regional security forces, especially in maintaining the safe passage of the Strait of Malacca between Indonesia, Sumatra, and the Malay Peninsula. This move contributes to maintaining geopolitical balance and stability,